Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Is there any guest presentations? None. Okay. Action items, which includes approve the consent agenda, minutes of the October meeting, payment of the bills, and classified personnel action. So I'll let you look over the bills for a little bit. What was that? Is there a second?
I'll second
It's been moved and seconded that we pay the bills, and I assume you want to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. No patron input? Okay. Informational reports, financial report.
No report tonight.
No report? Okay, technology director's report.
I'm going to hold off until we get to the action items.
Okay, principal's report.
As you can rely on that enrollment, we only have 151. We lost a couple, but we're gaining 2 more students next month, or Monday we get back from break. So this is back up to 153. We're 80. Average daily attendance is 94%. It's gone down the last couple weeks. We've had a lot of sick kids. Our ICH results, as you have them, the first one is September's beginning baseline, and then we're into November, and sorry, into the 4th, but it's looking really strong. And that's what we want. It's 5% the red, we want 5% at the end, and May or less. So, looking pretty good. We're finishing up with our ERI, that's that early reading intervention with our Tier 2 and Tier 3 kids that finishes up tomorrow. We've been doing for the last 3 weeks, just three days a week. And the teachers have found that it's pretty effective. Last year we did it two weeks, and it was kind of a burnout for the kids, it seemed like the teachers. So the three days for the 3 weeks has been great. Kelly Serber and I just attended the Family Community Engagement Conference in Boise and talked a lot about poverty and attendance, a lot of family community, just how to get your families involved in your schools. So it was really a great conference. We spread the rubber mulch in our playground. We had a work day on the 3rd where all kids were out there working. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to come by. It's pretty cool. We are having a mural put up by or use her as, paint a mural, and then also, she's going to come back next spring and do some artwork with her kids. Nikita Adams, she's a senior here at the high school. She's been working with her kids this last week on stress, and she's made some great impacts with the kids. They are really enjoying her coming in, but she's made little projects with them with stress and stress relief. So it's been great. So that's been a great senior project. Lastly, I'm looking into gym floor covering for our gym, and looking into it for both with the high school and our gym. Hopefully next month I'll have some quotes to see what we can do about that, or if we can. But it's something that I'd like to look into. We spend all this money on our gym floors. It'd be nice to preserve them when we have concerts and activities. So, anyways, that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Okay, this is a little weird, but I can't hear anybody, so I'm gonna turn it over to Chad. So I'll let Chad run the meeting. I'm having a head cold, I guess, but I couldn't hear what Dory said at all, so
I'm sorry.
let Chad take
Okay,
over.
we'll turn it over to Superintendent's report.
Okay, for the high school, our students of the month were Jaden Bramer and Rachel Olson in the category of leadership. Our discipline report, we've had 7 referrals and 6 suspensions over the past month and 0 bus referrals. Our attendance is up a little bit from the last board meeting. We were at about 94.5, so it's up a couple percentage points from last month. Winter sports have started under athletics. Girls basketball, we have about 15 kids playing, and boys basketball, we expect about 18 or 19, somewhere in that area. We'll see next week how that goes. Testing, our students recently participated in the PSAT test. Our sophomores take that test as a practice for the SAT their junior year. Something of note, the state recently changed the requirements around the SAT test, and that is no longer mandatory for students as a graduation requirement. We'll still be a test site for juniors, so we'll be offering that still, as will other high schools, I assume. Our enrollment is down a few students. We're actually at 137 now as of today, so we're down about 5 students from the start of the year. Which is, it's fairly normal actually to drop a few, somewhere between maybe 2 and 5 in the first few months of school, so it's pretty normal. For the district, field house update, this comes from Joe, but he said the field house, let's see, plumbing rough inspection is completed, electrical inspection is completed, electrical heat is getting hooked up, and sheetrock is next. Foam insulation was blown in on the underside of the roof, and venting of fans and dryer still to be installed, although I know that they're working on that, so we're getting closer there. Dory and I reviewed the strategic plan draft that Lisa Cologne-Durham sent us from ISBA based on that community meeting that we had, and so we'll bring that draft to the board next month in December. So for further review, hopefully get that adopted by January is the goal. So dyslexia training. So the State Department is now offering free dyslexia training. I don't know if this came up at ISBA last week for anybody, but that's a free training. Like I said, in general, elementary staff have a little bit more training to complete than the secondary staff, and everybody needs to have some degree of training done by the start of next school year. So the State Department still has the handbook to put out and stuff, so that information is still developing, but we're getting there slowly. I think once we get to the new year, we get the new administration in, that'll probably help with some of that stuff and the rollout of those things I'm expecting. Take one of those and pass it to you. So we had a couple issues with water damage at the elementary, just to be aware of. The first one was during the rainstorms that we had. And that issue, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Rory, but that issue, there was a ball that went up onto the roof at some point and clogged a drain and caused the water to back up and then came back down through air vents. Is that correct? So that was our first water damage issue. Those first couple pictures were from that, along with the top of the second page, back of the first page as well. And then we had a second issue this week. It was on Monday, the 14th, I believe, where a heater line blew a hole in it and water had been running over the weekend. So the roof tiles and the sheetrock were damaged. So the information at the top there is some information that Joe provided. He's had a number of these issues over the last few years. Some of the copper lines, some are copper lines in the coils. Another issue is the rubber hose lines have blown holes in them as well. So he does have those replaced. He said, looking into the future, the heating system in the west wing is 30 plus years old. If replaced, he would recommend going with an HVAC, electric heating and cooling system, and eliminating the water up there and eliminate using the diesel fuel for the heating. So some things to think about. But those were the issues that caused the water issues down there.
So is there any like mitigation as far as getting it dry and making sure there's no mold and stuff like that?
Yeah, and actually today it was actually pretty dry, really.
Oh, no, they have big fans.
Fans and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe's on it right away.
Yeah. Anyway, that's something to be aware of. And I think, Joe's kind of been talking about replacing that system for a while, but maybe down the road we look at that. The other thing too is just of note is our November foundation payment from the state happened a couple days ago, I think. That was a big one. That was about $480,000. That's based on last year's data. And so what they'll do is this spring, they'll use this year's data to true us up and get us almost whole for the year. And so, those first few payments are based on last year, and then if let's say your enrollment goes up, they account for that in the February payment, or if it vice versa goes down. So anyway, ours is up, but that's when things get evened out the way they should be. So this is a pretty big one for us, though. I think that's all I have. Is there any questions?
All right, we'll move on to trustees report. You may have a trustee report you want to talk about. I'll talk briefly. Three of us attended the conference in Coeur d'Alene last week, along with Steve and Amy. I guess nothing earth-shattering happened there tonight. I went to. There's some good meetings. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that, on any meetings you attended that or want to share or anything.
For a new board member, I know it was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of good information, it just went to, what was her name, Julie Overley?
Mm-hmm.
And she did that talk on how the monies are apportioned. And so when you're talking about that, I was like, oh, I learned something. So yeah, it's nice to understand, everything that you're talking about, where it comes from, and how all of that is delegated and segregated.
All right, anybody else have anything? So we'll move on to the next one. Agenda item, discussion, talk about the supplemental on the plant facility levy elections. So you want to talk about that?
Well, so we have an action item to set the date for the supplemental levy if we run one, and also the plant facilities if we run one. And so I put a discussion item on here just for folks to talk about it a little bit now that we are a little bit further into the school year. We have the audit report back and so forth. So you know, I thought maybe we could start with, when do we wanna do it? And how do we wanna do that, and then anything else that you guys wanted to talk about there?
I think it works good for the supplemental levy in March as well. If something does happen here,
Gives us time to adjust.
yeah, if we can, something happens here, maybe don't pass, or there's an issue or whatever, you still have time to fix it. Did we run the plant facility the same time 2 years ago? Or I guess we
Five
got
years ago.
doing 5, so I don't know.
Do we still want to run it for 810,000?
So do you think the 50,000 enough is for the, is enough for the plant facility, Steve, or?
I kinda do. You know, we have, you know, we've been able to keep a little bit of money in there in case we have a really big project coming up, which we probably do have a couple big projects. You know, we talked about the elementary, West Wing. That might be something to consider. I think the parking lot out here is probably something to consider. Those are kind of the big things that come to mind. We have the, you know, the annual things that we're always working on in our, you know, long-term facility plan. Flooring, windows, doors, things like that. But we're pretty good there right now, actually. You know, there's some other flooring projects we need to look at, like cafeteria through the halls and stuff at the high school, but beyond that, flooring is actually pretty good right now. At the elementary, the only bigger type projects I can think of right now, we talked about resurfacing some of the playground area, but yeah.
I think replacing that furnace should be probably on the top of our replacement list. Because diesel, and it's gonna be very expensive, and it's getting more expensive.
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of price tag that would be.
Might be a good idea. Let me see what it's gonna cost us. Be a good summer project.
Yeah, I can start talking to Joe about what something like that would cost. Then we could have that next month when we consider like the amount.
I was thinking, you know, like long-term, like when we pay off the bond for the gymnasium, then maybe that would be a good time to have our facilities assessed. And like, I don't know what the state of our roads are in. That's kind of a, so there could be some major items that we'll want to do, but maybe we can put it off for a few years, but. Anyway, that was kind of my thinking. And I don't know whether we do another 5-year or do a 10-year. It seems like with the way inflation is now, 10 years is, we could really be in a hole.
Yeah.
So March though, March for plant facility levy,
Yeah, yeah.
supplemental levy. Okay, so between now and then, now and next month, I'll talk with Joe and see if we can figure out kind of what we'd be looking at for that HVAC system. That can help guide it a little bit. And he's already looked into like parking lot type things too, so he already has kind of an idea on something like that, maybe down the road further. Originally, we had talked about maybe splitting it up, doing sections of it by year. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not.
Probably wouldn't be.
I kind of like the idea of just doing it all in one, if we have those funds available there, in the plant facility fund.
But you can't get the state of Idaho doing a project in the area and have them come in and tear it up so somebody else can resurface it.
Yeah. Well, there's an action item to set the date, so, I don't know the exact date, but I guess what I had in mind there was just March of 23 or May of 23 or.
Because they pretty much tell you which day you have.
Yeah, it's on the election day, yeah.
All right, so we might as well just move on to the action item then, and set the supplemental levy election date or month, I should say.
I know we set the supplemental levy election date for March.
Okay, so move in second, then we run in March. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Was it March 7th? We set that date first because that's what the counties need first from us when we do that.
The next one is set the plant facilities levy election date. Do you have a motion to set at the same time?
I believe that we set the plant facilities levy in March as well.
So move in second that we set the plant facilities levy in March. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next agenda item, 8C, action, purchase student information system for 2023-2024. I'll turn over to Dan and Steve.
All right, so I'm gonna take you through what we initially talked about with all of this, and then what we kind of came up with. So we took this, after doing some research on vendors, we took this to the district leadership team to talk about it. And one of the things that we would love to have is basically an all-inclusive solution, something that does pretty much everything that we need it to do, right? So it does the school information system, it does SPED, it does food service, it can send messages out to parents, it does transportation, online payments, parent portal, a learning management system. That's ultimately what we'd love to have. The problem is that doesn't exist. So you get portions of this, and then you kind of have to add piecemeal back later on. So this is data from last year. This is, the state asked everybody, what school information system do you use? So statewide, this is the representation. We're in the Tyler Sys category, which is at 7.4%. You'll notice that a vast majority of the state is on PowerSchool. So take that 7.4%, and they're going to be looking for a new school information system. So in region, statewide, I believe that's either 12 school districts that we're going to be in the market for something new at this point. So here's region 2. You'll notice that pretty much everybody in region 2 is on PowerSchool, with Skyward and Tyler Sys being the two competing. The only outlier is the Genesee School District, which is on Woodland. Now, to put it in perspective though, this is region 1, so everybody north of us. The vast majority of them are on either Tyler Sys or Skyward, with PowerSchool rounding out the third place for that whole thing. So this is the matrix that you use, especially in information technology. Those are the three criteria. You get to pick 2. We always joked about if it's gonna be fast and good, it'll never be cheap. Cheap and fast, it won't be good. Good and cheap, and it won't be fast. So ultimately, we're trying to find something that's in the middle there, which is absolutely not possible at all. So with that in mind, we went to the group and they said, okay, so what are the specifics that we want out of a new school information system? So we want to have good technical support. Meaning that right now, if we have an issue with TylerSys or even Infinite Visions, which is changing its name in January to a terrible product name, but that's coming down the road. We have to call and basically leave them a message or put in an email, and then they'll call us back at their whim. Which makes it difficult when you have a teacher that has a question about something that's going on inside of TylerSys, saying, I don't know how to do this. They'll get back to you when they want to get back to you, not when you need them to. And then usually now anymore, it's gotten to the point where they don't actually answer your question. They send you a page out of the manual for you to read. And most of the time we go, no, we know where that's in the manual. I have a specific question about this. So the other one, what we want is software as a service. And what that means is, so like you guys are used to using in Google Docs here, you have a word processor that's on your Chromebook, right? It's not installed on the Chromebook, it's actually in the cloud. It's software as a service, and that's what we currently have with TylerSys. TylerSys is hosted somewhere else. It's a website you go to. It runs from there. We want to try to get as many things as possible out of it, and we want to make sure that we have the balance of value to what we're paying. And so I always joke with vendors when they call me and are selling me stuff that I'll say, look, I don't need a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. What I would really like to have is a Camry with leather seats, right? I want a little bit of class to something that's going to last for a long time. So that's kind of the approach that we took on this. So the way that it normally works pricing-wise, and we'll get to that, is you take your base product, which is going to be the school information system, and then they'll add all these different components to it. So messaging may be an additional cost, food service will be an additional cost, online registration is the hot one because that's what everyone wants. Well, they're not going to bundle that with it, they're going to charge you extra for that. And anything else that they can think of that they can add as a value add-on later on. So keep in mind too, we pay about $12,000 a year to run TylerSys, and it's a accompanying product called Pulse, which is an analytics tool that we use pretty extensively. So let's go through the comparisons. I've kind of broken it down for you. We can go through the individual quotes if you would like. Out of the 3 products that we have that we got and the vendors that were in the running, you can see that 2 of them, or as of right now, are fully functional software as a service. Now, Skyward has been telling us that it's been coming for, I think, a solid 10 years. So they were saying that more than likely in 23 they'll have it available, but they couldn't guarantee that it'd be ready to go for IDA. Okay, so we'll take that into consideration. Infinite Campus and Skyward both have basic analytics, so some reports that are already built into the system. But if you want to do any in-depth or full analytics, that's going to be an additional cost. And in the Infinite Campus realm, it was substantially more expensive. The quote that we have from PowerSchool basically has a full analytics suite that goes with it. All 3 of them have online registration. Is that online registration free? No. It's an additional service on top of that as well. One of the other things that we would like to collect and not to have to deal with anymore is paper copies of certain forms, or things like permission slips, field trips, the rest of those types of things. Or as we're doing online registration, we have things that we are mandatorily required to keep and fill out. We would like to be able to keep those and have that access. Infinite Campus does not have that. Skyward does, but it's quite a bit of more of an expense. In PowerSchool, the quote that we have in there, we put that along with it. As for online payments for like school meals and all the rest of that stuff, they all defer out to my school bucks, which we already use. So that's good to know. Now, first year costs. This is the startup costs. So this would be technically for the first year, all of their startup fees plus the training and implementation. The first year at Infinite Campus, if you were to refer to the quote, and these are hard to decipher, that's why I've kind of nailed these down for you on this one here. They're saying $18,400 for the first year. If they had, because they bought the list from Tyler for all of the customers. And so they're giving a discount on the training to get you to come in. That dollar amount would be $22,000 or $20,000 if we had to purchase it as a, yeah, $22,100 if we had to purchase it separately. Power School came in at $37,420, and that's with all implementation trainings. And the big number there, Skyward came in at $48K. Now I want to put a caveat on that because that's down from the $60,000 they initially came in with. And I said, no, we're not doing $60K. You guys can do way better than that. So that was their final number. They said, we can't do it for anything less than $48,000. Keep in mind on that first year though, Infinite Campus, that is a 12-month. Skyward is also a 12-month. Power School, that number is an 18-month. So they're going to give us the product for 18 for 12 in order to complete all the training and all the setup and everything that we need to do on top of that. Reoccurring costs, Infinite Campus, Power School, just about the same. Skyward is less, but again, we're missing some basic functionality that you're not getting with the other vendors. So after we went through some demos, we had teachers go through both Infinite Campus, and we had a demonstration from Power School. There was a lot of questions asked, and we took a vote on the whole thing, and the DLT has recommended that we go with Power School. So tonight, that's what we are presenting to you, is we would like for you to approve the Power School implementation for next year. Any questions?
So how long is this gonna last with Power School?
Well,
How many years?
So, the joke that I had with the DLT was, no one, well, first of all, they also said this too. No one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I want to change school information systems, right? No one wants to do that. But I also told staff that this is an arranged marriage, right? So we're gonna have to learn to love the person that we're dealing with, because there's gonna be ups and downs with this whole thing. This is a long haul thing. This is what I tried to explain to Skyward, is we're not changing next week because we're simply not happy with this. This is an investment, and this is a long-term investment. There are districts in the area that have been 10+ years on Power School. Lewiston School District has been on Power School way longer than that. I think since Apple owned it, which was almost 15, 20 years ago. So we do have a lot of other partners in the area that if we have questions or we get stuck with things, there's a Power School users group that meets monthly in Lewiston for people who have questions about how to set things up, how to do things. So this is a long haul. We're looking to stay with this and not move.
So in the long haul, the upfront cost doesn't matter so much.
Not really. Other than it being $48,000, which I can't say.
Right.
I'm sorry. Especially when they're not to the point that the other two are. That was my other complaint to them, is that it's not even software as a service. You're not even hosting this. You're expecting us to come up with all the gear in the back end, and then, oh, no, it's coming. But you've been telling that to me that for 10 years. There are other teachers who have taught at previous districts were on board with the Power School thing. Manful's one of them. I know Mrs. Heyer, who's our new second grade teacher, she came from Lewiston, so she's in Power School. So I am going to say this, the implementation is not going to be fun or easy, and they never are. So it's going to be a lot of work for everybody and everything to get through this.
Tyler was hard too, but we don't have a choice, it's going away, so that's just how they are. I also think that, I believe we can use ESSER money for that upfront cost too, so we're just waiting confirmation.
Anybody else have any questions for Dan? Is there a motion to approve Power School for?
A motion to approve purchasing Power School.
So we're moving second that we approve Power School for purchase student information system. Any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, I had too much stuff on here, it's taking a long time.
Sixty-three? Oh, maybe I can't. There, now I got it. I went too far.
The next action item is consider amendment to the 22-23 calendar. Steve, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so we have currently a professional development day scheduled in April on the 24th, and our trainer is not able to make that day now, and so he requested we move it up 1 week to April 17th. So it would be moving that PD day from the 24th to the 17th in April.
Okay, is there a motion to move the personal? Go ahead.
Motion to amend the 22-23 calendar, move the professional development date from the 24th to the 17th.
Is there a second?
I saw the, or I saw the second.
It's been, motion been made, seconded, that we move the personal day from the 24th to the 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the appointed district treasurer. Steve, you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we have asked we've asked Kendall to serve as the interim district business manager until we have a more permanent situation, and so she's agreed to that. So in order to move forward with business, we have to appoint her as the treasurer, and that's for the sake of our accounting system visions, and it's for the sake of Wells Fargo, just to move forward.
I move we appoint Kendall McWilliams as district treasurer.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we appoint Kendall Williams as district treasurer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next action item is the hire facilities and transportation supervisor. Steve, you want to discuss this?
Yeah, so we interviewed candidates for the facilities and transportation supervisor position, and our committee is recommending Justin Clemenhagen. The position is a 260-day position, so it's a year-round position. I wanted the board to consider and making that a classified exempt position, making it a salary position rather than hourly. I think because of the nature of the job, it might be better to make that a salary position, just because, you know, how it kind of goes, but I thought you guys might have some ideas on that too, if maybe there's a reason it wasn't in the past, I don't know. I do know that in quite a few districts it's a salary position, you know. And then I was also recommending a salary of $70,000 per year for that 260-day position. And that's all I have on that.
Any discussion on it?
I think he's gonna be a hard worker.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he'd be, that's a good person for motion then?
I'll motion that we hire Justin Cunningham at a salary of $70,000 per year as a transportation superintendent.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Good motion and second that we hire Justin Clemhagen as facility and transportation supervisor on a salary position. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Policy amendment review, first readings. Go ahead, Steve.
Brace yourself. Okay, so this is the fall release from ISBA, and if you had a chance to glance over it before the meeting, you saw there's quite a bit of things in there about curricular materials and library materials, because that's the information that's been in the news lately. And so ISBA tried to put out policy that addresses some of these things and makes things a little bit easier for districts as issues come up. So one thing that these updates also have is they seem to have a lot more going on as far as amendments than previous amendments. And there's different options in there for us to select from in some of these, more so than what we've had in the past. So as we go through it, I'm going to talk about those options and see where we are on those. I'll give some recommendations, what I think, but it's your policy. And then we're just reviewing. I'll get some feedback. Based on that feedback, I'll revise it again and then bring it to you next month for amendment, or I think there's one new one, so it'd be adoption. Okay, so the first policy is 2500, and that's library materials. This update adds new cross-references and new references to other materials that may be of use. It also adds a short statement on student privacy. This is an optional update to an optional policy. So it adds language in there that a lot of this is just changing the references. The sections in there that are underlined or red, I guess, are new language. And then if they're recommending getting rid of it, there's just a line through it. This one's pretty straightforward. Okay, any questions or comments on that one? Okay, 2510, selection of library materials. This update adds more options for the board to describe the mission of their school library or libraries. It also notes that library materials can include a variety of media and states the need for school libraries to follow copyright policies and procedures. It also adds a variety of new references and cross-references. So, the first section there to look at in 2510 is, it says, select one or more of the following and or include one drafted by the district. So, it adds some options there that are highlighted in green. So the green sections in these are the optional, like where we have options to pick from sections. So the sentence up top says, the provision of a wide variety of library materials at all ability levels supports the school district's school library's mission to, and then 1 through 4, we can use any one of them or all of them. My recommendation is just to use all of them and keep them. But I'm open to anything there. There was just nothing that stood out to me as a reason to get rid of it.
Good.
Any thoughts? Okay.
The first one is the most important.
Yeah.
The rest of them are fine.
Yes.
Yeah, right, yeah. There's a lot of changes on the references too, so there's a lot of reference changes on these. On the second page at the top above the references, it expands what type of materials you find in the library. That's where they're talking about different types of media. Okay, if there's no comments there, we'll go to 2510P. There are no objections there, I should say. 2510P is selection of library materials, so the P is a procedure. This update adds extensive new direction to the acquisition of new library materials, including materials for special collections and handling donated materials. It also offers further direction on the routine removal of materials that are no longer needed. This is another optional update to an optional procedure. The sections in red are new sections. And that first section there that you see in the middle, the 1 through 8, in selecting library materials, the librarian or the designee will consider those things when selecting library material. And then it goes on, the librarian will examine materials and consult reputable professional prepared selection aids. They shall also seek and consider recommendations of material to acquire from teachers, students, administrators, and other district staff and community members as appropriate. The actual resource will be examined whenever possible. On the second page, it talks about deselection and how to remove library material. So this gives our librarian guidance on that process. And then below it talks about gifts and how to go about accepting or not accepting gifts into the library. And I can go through these and read each one of them if you like.
The discussion down at the convention was, it's easier to not let it material in as opposed to trying to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what this is aimed at. So.
Yeah, I think, I don't remember who it was, but they said there's never actually been a lawsuit for putting content in a library. It's always been removing it from the library.
Yeah.
2520, this material, the material in this policy has been merged into 2540. So this is a deletion of 2520. And then 25.4, if we do choose to delete this policy, they're recommending that 2540 become 2520 after they have merged together. You with me on that? Okay. So 2530 is learning materials review and reconsideration. This policy includes new additions aimed at addressing parents or guardians' concerns informally and on a one-on-one basis when possible. It also includes changes to the process for reviewing challenged materials to prevent individuals directly involved in the challenge from serving on the review committee. So if someone came in and they challenged something in the library, they couldn't then be on the committee to review whether it should be in the library or not. It would be a separate group. Some of the new portions of this policy are also aimed at ensuring materials are considered in their relevant context. Many of these changes are based on best practices recommended by the Idaho Commission for Libraries. This is an optional update to an optional policy. And so, a lot of this is kind of making this process sort of like the grievance, like a parent grievance. You try to handle it first as informally as possible, one-on-one with the person, and then go from there. In the second paragraph on this one, there's an optional section that says, any parent or guardian of a district student, any student or any employee, and then optional, or any district resident may formally challenge a specific learning material. So the question is, do we want to allow just parents, students, and employees to challenge something in the library, or anybody from the community to challenge something from the library?
My opinion is that we shouldn't allow just district residents to do that. Save a lot of grief.
Okay. And it goes on through that policy just to more procedure for that process. Okay, if there's nothing else on that one, 2530, which is a form This is a request for review and reconsideration of learning materials. This is a new model form for individuals to request review of an item of library or curricular material that they have concerns about. So someone comes in, they have a concern about a document or a book or something in the library. This is where we start. So similar to anything else, I guess. Any questions or comments on this one? This is a new one, so this is the first reading, so it would be an adoption. Okay, 25, what was 2540, what they're recommending becoming 2520. This was merged with 2520. So they cover similar topics, so this update merges the two into this policy, which has now been renumbered 2520. It's an optional update. This is selection, adoption, use, and removal of curricular materials. One of the things that was talked about in this last legislative session and also at ISBA last week was just curriculum adoption. And there's new laws around curriculum adoption, and it basically involves just more parents on it, on committees to, you know, instead of in the past it was, you know, curriculum adoption committees may have these people. Now it shall have these people. So half the committee, I believe it is, have to be non-educators, have to be parents. And actually I think we've been doing that anyway. I don't know about ELA, but our math, I think we have about half. I don't remember, but I think it's fine. Not much we can do about that anyway. So. Any questions or comments on 2520? Okay, 3340 is corrective actions and punishments. So these updates were made based on recommendations provided by the Idaho State Department of Education. These updates include corrections and further details on the suspension and expulsion of students with disabilities. And this is a required update to a recommended policy. So it, in this one, it takes out some language and adds some additional language under extended temporary suspension by the superintendent for an additional. So a student could be excluded from school or suspended by the superintendent for an additional 10 days. Prior to suspending any student, the superintendent shall grant an additional informational hearing on the reasons for the extended temporary suspension. In general, when you suspend a kid, a school or a principal can suspend a kid up to 5 days. Superintendent can extend it 10 days. Board can extend it beyond that. That would generally be like in the case of an expulsion hearing, in order to prepare for an expulsion hearing. When you have a student with disabilities, that process it changes. You don't necessarily suspend a kid for more than 10 days with a disability over the course of a semester without having like a determination as to whether or not the suspension is a result of the disability. And so that's called a manifest determination. So it's just a different process there. And this outlines that somewhat. Any questions or comments on 3340? And in between now and the next meeting, if you're looking through these and you want to, backtrack, we can. There's no rush to get these adopted next month. We can put one off if we have to the following month. 3340P is the procedure for that. These updates are also based on recommendations from the State Department of Ed and deal mainly with disciplinary action and students with disabilities. The update also includes a change regarding whether students are allowed to make up work while they are suspended from a class. The new item on this topic allows the board to choose whether makeup work will be allowed or not. This is a required update to a recommended procedure. So, let's take a look at the green section, or the highlighted section down in number 5 under suspension. So we have to select one. Well, I guess we don't have to, but it's recommended. Work missed during the period of suspension cannot be made up for consideration for grading, or arrangement can be made between the school or teacher and student or their family, such as graded work missed during the period of suspension can be completed by the student for consideration for the student's grade. So to give you some backstory here, what we have generally done is when a kid is suspended, in our handbook we say teachers don't have to allow work to be made up during a period of suspension. But we have then told teachers and families, a teacher may, at their discretion, allow a student to make up work during a period of suspension. So, any thoughts, sir?
I think if we let the teacher decide, then we have to do the second one, right?
Yeah, we
Well, the
would.
first one basically says it can't.
Yep, you're right. You'd have to go with the second one if we continued what we were doing.
Mhm.
But, I mean, if the board feels strongly that we don't allow that, then so be it. If we do go with the second one, I think maybe just changing, it says arrangement can be made, I would change that to may be made, so then it really is teacher discretion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you guys think?
No, I guess.
Okay. I don't think there was really much else on that one to talk about. If you see anything, let me know. The next policy is 3360, discipline of students with disabilities. This update removes this short policy mainly serves to direct readers to the Idaho Special Education Manual for further details. Now that 3340 and 3340P include some detail on this topic and include a reference to the manual, this policy is no longer necessary, so this is a deletion of a formerly required policy. They're just not being redundant here. You're going to see this later too, I think it's the very last one. Basically, we had a policy that was just rewriting the code of ethics for teachers, so they decided instead of just rewriting the whole thing, let's just say reference it. So this is just getting rid of redundancy there. 3525 is immunization requirements. This update removes columns from the tables of immunization requirements that applied to older cohorts of students. Basically, there was things on the old one that now don't apply to anybody because our kids are too old for them. So they're aged out. That's it. Straightforward. 4105, public participation in board meeting. This update includes several small changes. It notes that the board can decide whether to allow patrons to participate electronically in board meetings at any time, not only during a health crisis. It adds language to let the board prioritize hearing comments from members of the district or school community over hearing comments from concerned visitors from other areas who lack a clear connection to the school or district. It clarifies that the board can determine for itself how far ahead of a meeting written comments for the public must be provided. At the recommendation of ISBA's policy colleagues in other states, we have rephrased this policy's limits on personally directed speech. While abusive, obscene, and threatening language continues to be out of order, the board should take care not to censor comments that are merely critical of board members. This is a recommended update to an optional policy. Well, okay, so on the first page there, I'm just going to read. It says all regular and special meetings of the board shall be open to the public, but any person who disturbs good order may be required to leave. The Board of Trustees encourages all citizens of the district to express their ideas and concerns. During a time of health emergency, the board may offer the ability to attend their meeting remotely, including the ability to submit patron input electronically ahead of time, at a time and in a manner identified by the board. Such electronically provided input shall be provided to the trustees. The comments of the community will be given careful consideration. In the evaluation of such comments, the first priority will be district students and their educational program. Is there anything in that first paragraph to talk about there or discuss? Okay, and it does say the board may offer the ability to attend remotely, so it doesn't necessarily obligate you to start setting things up. Okay, below that, there's one small change in the notice there, and instead of or. On the second page, it adds green areas for time periods. Right now, in our current policy, we allot 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes for public comment, and we allow each speaker up to 3 minutes. We also, I believe, in our previous one, we have Friday of the week before to submit a request to address the board. So we can keep that the same, or you guys can change those numbers if you like, but that's what they are right now. Okay. And those are the main things there. Any other questions or comments on that one?
Just that bottom paragraph for the new board members, because of the diversity of issues, trustees will not respond to public comments, so, you know, if somebody talks to us, we really can't dialogue with them, so.
Best thing to do is send your questions to Chad or Don.
Okay, let's see, 4105F, so this is a form, this is a request to address the board. These edits include changes to match policy 4105's process for prioritizing the hearing of comments from members of the district or charter school community. They also modify the restriction of improper conduct at meetings to match the updates in the policy. So basically what it's saying is, if we have community members and parents, that's going to take priority over people that come in from, don't necessarily have a connection with the district. That one's pretty straightforward, I guess. 4260F, this is a form, this is a records request form. These edits bring this form into alignment with the version of the ISBA clerk's manual. So this just updates that form. Mostly on the back there. That's pretty straightforward. 4500P, public gifts and donations to the school. This update offers a little more detail on how donations of library materials will be handled. This is an optional update to an optional procedure. So if you look at number 7 there, it says gifts of library materials will only be added to the school library's collection if they meet the standards for selection of library materials, policy 2510 and procedure 2510P. Provide further detail on that. And these gift and donation policies actually come in really handy. We use these a lot. Not with the library, but other things. 5100, hiring process and criteria. This update clarifies which parts of the process laid out in the policy apply to filling all positions and which apply to particular categories such as certified positions, classified positions, or administrative positions. It also adds detail on qualifications, including for applicants who are pursuing an alternate route to certification. The edits offer further detail on the role of the hiring committee and of the board in hiring. They also emphasize that prioritizing internal applicants does not guarantee that an internal applicant will be hired. Additionally, the update adds an option to define which employees are considered to be internal applicants. This is a recommended update to a required policy. This one probably has the most to it. So let's just go through this. 5100. At the top it says, note, this policy is written as if the building principal and the district superintendent are different people. However, the tasks assigned to each may be completed by the same person. If your district has a sup who also serves as the building principal, and you would like to help modifying this policy to match your circumstances, please feel free to reach out to ISBA. I don't think we necessarily need to. I've read through it. I think we can keep it the same. But it's your policy. Okay, next paragraph. The Board of Trustees has the legal responsibility of hiring all employees. The board assigns to the superintendent the process of recruiting personnel, optional, and hiring all classified personnel. Well, I'm okay leaving it out, even though I do bring that to you. Classified personnel at the elementary, Dory handles. Some of these things I'm probably going to recommend taking it out, even though we do it anyway. Just because sometimes I think less is better. But is there any issue with just taking that optional part out? The superintendent may involve various administrative and teaching staff as may be needed in recruiting potential personnel. All personnel or optional certificated personnel selected for employment must be recommended by the superintendent or designee and approved by the board. I think just all personnel is fine, and just includes classified as well. Stop me if you need to. Okay, down below, the paragraph that's in red, the new paragraph, it says all applicants applying for a certificated position who are pursuing an alternate route to certification shall be considered on a case-by-case basis. They must hold or demonstrate ability to hold any state certificate, etc. So that's pretty straightforward there, or meet the alternate route requirements. All of that is straightforward. Number 4 on the second page is an optional section. It says applicants for all teaching positions, pupil service staff, and administrator positions should have a GPA of blank overall and a GPA of blank in the area in which they will teach, if applicable. I would recommend striking it.
Yeah.
Just like, how do you find those applicants then?
If we had 20 applicants for every position, maybe. Okay. Next page. So we have 2 big sections here, and this is on notice of vacancies. So there's option 1, and then you get to option 2. So how we post these things. Option 1 most closely aligns right now with what we're currently doing, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. And I think on this one too, I think take out the optional things and just leave it as they wrote it. But it says, all vacancies will be posted after the board has approved written resignation from an employee of the district. We do that currently, unless it's a new position, of course. A termination or non-renewal has occurred, a release from contract has been granted, a new position is created within the district, or a vacancy has otherwise occurred. When that official resignation has been received or a position is otherwise available, the superintendent will post notices in all school buildings, in the district office, on the website, and emailing to staff. If a termination or release from contract requires board approval to be final, the superintendent may post the vacancies pending this approval. So we generally do that. We don't always email all of the openings to staff. We generally post them. We generally put them on the district website. We put them on paper at times, and then education websites generally, and then once in a while Indeed. So those are the resources we generally use for posting. Job vacancy notices. Any notice from our district will contain the following information: position available and job description. Those are generally brief job descriptions because they start to cost money. Or they just, job descriptions are pages and pages, so we're not putting that in here, but brief. Requirements for completed application and application as applicable for position. For a certificated position shall include application, transcripts, etc. So these are all the things that we already require. Timeline for receiving the application and process notification of how applicants will be handled. So those are the things that we tend to do already, I think. The superintendent's office will, and I would suggest we put may, post notice of any vacancy within the district for blank school days for internal applicants. I think those always depend on the position, to be honest, like, and also how much of a hurry we're in to fill a position. So I guess I would recommend, if you're comfortable with it, I would put in that paragraph, I would put the superintendent's office may post notice of vacancy within the district for a period of time determined by the superintendent for internal applicants to apply for the position. And then for the purpose of this policy, internal applicants refers to a certified, it can also, I think, classified as well, counts as internal. I don't know why we would distinguish that. Are you guys okay keeping classified on that one? Yeah. Okay. And then optional, this shall or shall not include substitute teachers. I would strike that. I wouldn't include substitutes as internal applicants. And then it goes on to talk about internal applicants applying for a position. Okay, so that second page, 1 through 6 is all part of that first option as well. I think the second option starts near the bottom of that page, does a lot of the same things, it's just minor details that are different. So if unless anybody objects, I think we just go with option 1 next month.
Is that essentially what you're doing now?
Yeah, it is. Okay, on page 6 of that one, under screening, it says select 1. The board may direct the superintendent to establish, or the building or program administrator may establish a committee to assist in the final screening process for positions. I'd recommend just the administrator, the building administrator, because I know like when they're hiring positions at the elementary, generally Dory's doing it. If it's here, generally I'm putting the committee together. Are we okay with that? Okay. Number 3, I would say the same thing, just the committee will establish the procedures. So that would be the building principal along with the committee that they appoint. Okay, page 7. Almost there. Page 7, under acceptance procedure. I'm just going to read that paragraph. Once the committee or administrator has selected the final candidate, the name will be provided to the superintendent, who will review the applicant's credentials with the building program administrator or program administrator. If the superintendent does not concur with the committee or administrator's recommendation, they shall ask the committee for their next choice until a selection the superintendent concurs with is found. And it says select 1. If the superintendent concurs with the recommendation for a certificated position, the superintendent will take the following steps. Or, if the superintendent concurs with the recommendation, the superintendent will take the following steps. Let me look at this again. If the superintendent Oh, so it's just saying with either certificated or anybody. So, I think this generally down here applies more to certificated positions, so I would recommend the first option up there, under acceptance. I think just because it applies a little bit better to the steps down below. Are we okay with that? Okay. Deb, you good?
Yep.
Okay. Page 8. Board action, optional, on hiring of certificated employees. I recommend we just strike that and just leave it with board action. When approving the hiring of an employee, the Board of Trustees will do those things there. Have placed before it the name of the candidate. So I think we just do that with every position like we're doing now, where you have the classified and certified positions there at the board meetings. Okay, that's it for that one. Do we want to go back and review those one more time? Okay. 5280. Professional Standards Commission. This is the one that I talked about where instead of just rewriting the Code of Ethics for educators, they just reference it. This says, this update was not prompted by any change to the Code of Ethics itself. Policies that closely restate the contents of other statutes, rules, or standards can easily drift out of date if an update is missed. Because of this, ISBA now advises adopting a policy that references the current version of the Code of Ethics rather than restating a particular version of it in its entirety. So that's the rationale for that one. That's it. So those are mostly amendments with a couple deletions and one new one that we'll bring back next month with those changes, and they'll look a lot more finished. That's all I have to learn.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
So is there board member input for future agenda items? If there is none, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second. Move second, this meeting is adjourned.